Vietnam, a 9-story building fire kills dozens.
Authorities say the fire started around midnight in the parking area of the building. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I'm Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richielago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Marcos Jr. inks the IRR of the Agrarian Emancipation Act before flying to Singapore. Australia eyes to give work and holiday visas to 200 Filipinos by 2024. Pyongyang leader Kim Jongun gives his full support to Russia in its fight against hegemonic groups. Rescuers struggle to dig survivors through the rubble of broken mud brick homes. And let's check the latest that Apple's iPhone series has to offer. Manila has announced road closures of several streets around the university belt ahead of the 2023 bar examinations. On September 17, 20, and 24, authorities will close Dapitan Street from Lacson Avenue to Pinoval Street, the two eastbound lanes of Legarda Street from San Rafael Street to Mendiola, both lanes of Mendiola from the Peace Arch to Malacanang, and both lanes of Concepcion Agila Street from Mendiola to Jose Laurel Street will also be closed. The road closures are scheduled from 3:30 in the morning to 9 in the morning and from 3:30 in the afternoon to 7 in the evening. Meanwhile, the two westbound lanes of España Boulevards from Lacson Avenue to Pinoval Street will also be closed on the said dates from 2 in the morning to 7 in the evening. The Quezon City government warned motorists of heavy traffic on roads near the University of the Philippines Diliman on the same dates but or due to the bar examinations.
The Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, said that a 6.3 magnitude earthquake hit Cagayan province Tuesday night, injuring 5. OCD reports that the victims were hurt when a wall collapsed in Cagayan town. 2 of them suffered serious injuries such as brain trauma and head concussion, while the other 3 had minor wounds. Cagayan Mayor Gogh ordered a class suspension in all levels in the town following the earthquake that rocked the region. OCD added that there were no casualties from the quake. Assistance is ready for the affected residents and rescue teams are on standby. Authorities of Cagayan and Isabela are monitoring the areas affected by the quake to assess the situation.
Starting on the 19th of September, discussions in the House of Representatives will revolve around the final reading of the proposed national budget for 2024, totaling 5.768 trillion pesos. The House has set a clear target, aiming to wrap up the plenary debates by the 27th of September. Finalization of the committee report on the General Appropriations Bill will occur by the 14th, and the final amounts could still be reallocated under the bill. The specific schedule of deliberations will also be announced at the same date.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. signed the Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, of the Agrarian Emancipation Act. Vin Pascua for the details.
Republic Act number 11953 was previously signed last July, relieving more than 600,000 agrarian reform beneficiaries from their over 57 billion pesos worth of loans. And now, this September, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has signed the Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, of the Agrarian Emancipation Act. This would empower farmers and enable them to respond to their needs. The President also has extended Executive Order Number 4 for 2 more years to include beneficiaries not covered by the IRR as well as the moratorium in the original EO. Meanwhile, Malacanang is set to formulate a copy of the IRR within 15 days of its effectivity. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The National Security Council is working on an updated map of the Philippines, challenging China's recent 10-dash line map by including all of its maritime territories. It will adhere to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and the 2016 Arbitral Award. The agency also highlights that the Philippine rise may be incorporated into this updated map, reinforcing the nation's claim to sovereignty over the 13 million hectare underwater plateau. This region is widely recognized as a potential reservoir of natural gas and various other valuable resources.
Seoul has approved the export of Philippine avocado to South Korea. The Department of Foreign Affairs notes that the country has completed the prerequisites for the ruling process for the entry of the tropical fruit. According to Dole Philippines, the country's fresh avocados are expected to be sourced from the orchards and packing houses of the company in Davao, Bukidnon, and South Cotabato. Hass is a variety of avocados with a darker shade of green with bumpy feel, which when ripe becomes dark plum in color and yields to gentle pressure. Meanwhile, Dole Korea will support the Philippines avocado campaign activities in South Korea to increase consumer awareness as well as boost its exports.
Indian Navy Commodore Debesh Lahiri has expressed the feasibility of a joint oil exploration venture between India and the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea. Lahiri cites India's Oil and Natural Gas Corporation as an example of successful collaboration, having already engaged in oil exploration activities in the same region in cooperation with Vietnam. Currently, the depleting Malampaya gas field serves as the sole domestic commercial source of natural gas for the Philippines, meeting approximately 20% of the country's total power needs. While there are no specific mentions of potential energy cooperation in the region, both nations have affirmed their commitment to strengthening their partnership during the 5th India-Philippines Joint Commission on Bilateral Cooperation held in New Delhi.
The Department of Defense, or DND, has clarified that the U.S. Navy plane, which monitored the recent resupply mission to 2nd Thomas Shoal, did not engage in any violations and collaborated closely with the Armed Forces of the Philippines. DND Undersecretary Ignacio Madriaga further confirmed that the U.S. plane was unarmed during the Senate Committee on National Defense hearing on the West Philippine Sea. He also emphasizes that the role of the plane was purely observational, and the success of the mission was primarily due to the bravery, courage, and expertise demonstrated by the Philippine Coast Guard.
The Australian Embassy in Manila has disclosed plans to grant work and holiday visas to 200 Filipinos between the ages of 18 to 30 years starting in 2024 as part of a reciprocal visa agreement between the Philippines and Australia. This development comes from a memorandum of understanding signed between the two nations. While specific dates and arrangement details have yet to be unveiled, the embassy has indicated that this visa will enable Filipinos to engage in short-term work in Australia to support their holiday expenses. Additionally, beneficiaries will have the opportunity to pursue studies for up to 4 months and make multiple trips to and from Australia, provided they can demonstrate sufficient financial means to sustain their travels.
Coming up, Kim Jongun and Vladimir Putin conclude their talks. An explosive drone was neutralized in Guayaquil prison. And House Speaker Kevin McCarthy launches a formal impeachment investigation on Donald Trump. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Best Public Affairs Program. And the star goes to Open for Business Net 25.
It is as a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, every Sunday, 9 p.m.
Talagang binaril na yung claim nila sa 9-9.
Yung kanang kamay, pinakamayan ang Pilipinas, pero yung kalimang kamay, sinasaksak naman tayo.
Hindi tayo naghahanap ng basagulo, pero nagpo-protesta kami. Ngayon, tayo yung iniipit tapos sinasabi nila, nangako tayo.
Baka magulat na lang tayo, baka may ilabas po ang China na meron silang resibo pala.
Sama-sama nating harapin ang mga issue at problema ng bayan. Dito lang sa ASPN, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. sa Net 25.
The Pennsylvania police have taken the escaped murderer Danello Cavalcante into custody after a 14-day manhunt. Authorities spotted Cavalcante in a field within the perimeter of tactical or bi-tactical teams. Cavalcante was hiding under foliage and a pile of logs. Sources said Cavalcante looked bloodied on his head, but circumstances surrounding his injury were unknown. A 9:30 a.m. press conference is scheduled to announce details of his capture. North Korea's leader Kim Jongun meets with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Vostochny Cosmodrome a couple of hours after Pyongyang test-fired 2 ballistic missiles off the east coast of the Korean peninsula. During the summit, Kim underscores North Korea's commitment as a steadfast ally of Russia, expressing unwavering support for the Russian president. President Putin, in turn, indicates that Moscow could potentially assist North Korea in satellite development, hinting at the possibility of discussions on military cooperation between the two nations. The two leaders took a tour of the Vostochny Cosmodrome before attending an official dinner held in Kim's honor.
Pyongyang leader Kim Jongun has met Russian President Vladimir Putin as the two leaders hold talks in Moscow's Vostochny Cosmodrome. Inside the Russian spaceport, Kim reaffirms the need to level up the bilateral ties between Russia and North Korea. He confines his position to establish a strong North Korea-Russia relationship. Kim also provides his full support to Putin, saying that Russia will win against evil.
우리는 러시아 군대와 이민이 패권과 팽창의 야망을 추구하는 악의 무리들을 징벌하고 안정적인 발전 환경을 마련하기 위한 정의의 싸움에서 반드시 위대한 승리를 쟁취하리라고 확신합니다.
Armenia has now granted permission for humanitarian aid from Russia after 9 months of a road blockade that had severed the crucial link between Armenia and its breakaway region of Nagorno-Karabakh. This decision is contingent upon Azerbaijan reopening the Lachin corridor route, which had been closed due to allegations of Armenia using it for weapons smuggling. The trucks from Russia are carrying food and toiletry that will alleviate the severe shortages of essential supplies for the 120,000 residents of Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh is internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan but has remained under Armenian control since 1994.
Ukraine has initiated an attack on Russia's Black Sea Fleet in Crimea, launching a total of 10 missiles and deploying 3 unmanned boats. This brazen move resulted in a fire breaking out at the Sevastopol shipyard and caused injuries to 24 individuals. 7 of the missiles were successfully intercepted, and all 3 unmanned boats were effectively neutralized. But the remaining cruise missiles managed to inflict damage on 2 of Russia's ships. Reports indicate that Russian drones have also initiated attacks on the Ukrainian grain port of Izmail, damaging the port and critical infrastructure in the area.
Germany and Norway begin joint submarine production using what the two countries describe as the most advanced technology. Emily Capili-Taroja has more.
Berlin and Oslo launched the production of a series of new submarines built in Kiel, northern Germany, by the German engineering company ThyssenKrupp Marine System. The program aims to strengthen the protection of NATO's northern flank. This amid maritime security challenges. ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems CEO Oliver Burkhardt hails the most advanced submarine technology for the Norwegian and German navies. Burkhardt says it is a celebration of the very important milestone in the two countries' joint submarine program, the start of the production of 212CD or common design. ThyssenKrupp CEO Miguel Angel Lopez Borrejo says securing free trade and transport routes on oceans in the long term, the growing tensions in the Indo-Pacific, and the protection of the Baltic Sea are just three of the major maritime security challenges of the times.
With the program that we are celebrating today, the participating countries, Norway and Germany, are demonstrating their willingness and ability to invest in military projects for the future and to further expand their own defense capabilities.
Emmy Capili-Taroja for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Rwandan government signs an agreement with a Canadian-German startup to build an experimental nuclear reactor. Rwanda says it would help reduce use of fossil fuels in the African nation. Marjorie Quintos has the details.
Canadian-German startup Dual Fluid Energy says the nuclear reactor will be ready for testing in 2026. Dual Fluid Energy is responsible for building the prototype. CEO Gert Ruprecht says the new reactors can be used to produce electricity, hydrogen, and synthetic fuels at costs below those of fossil fuels. Rwanda's infrastructure minister Ernest Nsabimana says the use of nuclear power would provide a stable and reliable source of electricity. It will reduce dependence on fossil fuels and help meet growing energy demands of the country. He says incorporating nuclear power into the energy mix will diversify the sources of energy, enhance energy security, and reduce vulnerability to supply disruptions. In 2019, Rwanda signed an agreement to set up nuclear plants in collaboration with Russia's nuclear agency, Rosatom. This sparked resistance over perceived safety risks. The Rwanda Atomic Energy Board and Dual Fluid Energy says their plans pose no threat to the population or the environment. South Africa is the only country in Africa to have a civil nuclear program with 2 reactors in service for more than 30 years. They produce 1,860 megawatts. That is about 4% of the country's total energy. Marjorie Quintos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Iran has convened a summit involving 50 other nations to deliberate on strategies and solutions for addressing severe weather conditions, including dust storms. RT's Youssef Jalali tells us more.
Sand and dust storms have in recent years turned into a pressing problem in Iran, and experts have warned that the situation is escalating into an environmental crisis. Here at Iran's International Dust Summit, Tehran has hosted officials and experts from 50 countries to exchange views on how to tackle the problem in the region.
Environmentalists, all governments, regional and international entities must commit themselves to exploring and respecting the laws of environment. What is the solution? The solution is to engage in deliberation, convergence, and contribution in order to find a common cure to this common pain.
A thick blanket of orange haze has over the years become a daily routine in vast parts of Iran. Once limited to the province of Khuzestan in southwest Iran, today the scourge has spread to over 23 provinces, with the capital Tehran also suffering some of the worst dusty days. The phenomenon has reached alarming proportions, leading to hospitalizations, ecological destruction, and the closure of educational institutions and offices.
Unfortunately, the dust particles, which are mostly smaller than 2.5 microns and 10 microns, can lead to damages in industries and people's health. They affect all age groups, especially children and the elderly. When it comes to managing this crisis, we need to both explore the origins of dust storms and raise awareness of the issue among the public.
Not only have the dust clouds caused irreparable health hazards in Iran and the region, they have wreaked havoc on agriculture, biodiversity, and the economy. Experts say every year dust storms inflict a staggering $13 billion loss on the Middle East and North Africa region.
In the past 50 years, approximately $124 billion have been lost in the world as a result of dust storms and the problems associated with droughts. We don't have precise estimates in Iran regarding the economic losses of dust storms, but we do know that Iran is affected by dust storms that blow from 270 million hectares of sources across the world.
Dust storms emerged more than 2 decades ago in Iran following the onset of persistent droughts in the country. While part of the phenomenon has to do with the expanding desertification of Iran, experts say 70% of the crisis emanates from non-domestic sources. There are multiple dust hotspots in the Middle East, stretching from Iraq and Saudi Arabia to Turkmenistan, with some being human-driven and others caused by climate change and declining precipitation levels. However, the Euphrates and Tigris rivers are the primary sources, covering Iraq, Turkey, Iran, and Syria.
In terms of topographic and geographic situation, Iran is situated on the last point of the dust storm path. The dust originates from the African desert and Arab countries. It reaches the Persian Gulf states and finally arrives in Iran and has so far affected different parts of our country.
Saudi Arabia's empty quarter desert, located in south of the kingdom, is believed to be responsible for a third of sand and dust storms in Iran's southwestern regions. Following the recent resumption of diplomatic ties between the two neighbors, Tehran and Riyadh have now engaged in discussions to address this environmental crisis.
It is very important to work with Iran, with Iraq, with Jordan, with the Middle East countries, with GCC to solve this problem, because if everybody would like to work alone, we will not solve the problem and the impact will be continuous.
The number of dusty days in Iran is on the rise, and experts say it has exceeded 100 days each year. Environmentalists warn that if the predicament is not harnessed immediately, it will spiral out of control and will catch more nations in its grip. Now, Iran says regional coordination and cooperation is the ultimate way out of the crisis, and this summit could be a promising start to dust off the region from the deteriorating challenge. Yusuf Jalali, RT, Tehran.
French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin announced their plan to deploy additional reinforcements in the fight against illegal immigration at their border with Italy.
Si on voit que la pression migratoire en France a baissé entre la frontière française et espagnole, et elle a baissé entre la frontière française et l'Angleterre, elle a augmenté à la frontière italienne du fait des désordres, notamment en Afrique, et la déstabilisation que connaît la Libye ou la Tunisie, qui s'est accélérée, et nous avons une augmentation de 100% des flux.
Prime Minister Elizabeth Warren announced the sending of 150 additional gendarmes and police officers, while the number of migrants arriving on Italian coast has doubled this year compared to last year's projections. The mobile force units, police or gendarmes, will increase from 2 to 4 to reach a total of more than 200 people. Additionally, soldiers assigned to night reconnaissance in the mountains as part of Operation Sentinel will increase from 60 to 120, and the customs staff will also be doubled ahead of the influx of illegal migrants.
Et donc nous avons décidé, à la demande du président de la République, de créer une border force, c'est-à-dire de prendre l'ensemble de l'administration, ce qui n'était pas le cas jusqu'à présent, sous un commandement unique, qui est celle des préfets, où on a effectivement ces renforts très importants de policiers et de gendarmes, mais aussi un doublement des effectifs douaniers, et notamment au péage de la Turbie ici, un doublement des effectifs sentinelles, c'est-à-dire les militaires qui, notamment dans la montagne, plus...
At the same time, law enforcement can now use drones to monitor crossing points. The upcoming immigration bill, which is to be debated in the Senate in the coming months, plans to expand the strip of territory to within which migrants can be returned, currently set at 20 kilometers, to place additional pressure in the fight against migrant smugglers.
Reconnaître les passages nocturnes notamment. Dans la loi immigration que je porte et que le Parlement va adopter, je l'espère, au mois de novembre-décembre pour ce qui concerne le Sénat et février-mars pour ce qui va l'Assemblée, il y a un très gros renforcement de ce que peut faire la police et la gendarmerie dans une bande plus large de kilomètres pour interpeller des personnes et considérer qu'ils ne sont pas rentrés sur le territoire national. Il y a une question évidemment très forte contre les passeurs, puisque tous ces gens qui viennent dans notre pays, ils passent par des réseaux criminels qui sont responsables de beaucoup de dégâts et on passe de délit à crime, c'est-à-dire que les gens pourraient être condamnés.
A drone loaded with explosives blasted a hole in the roof of a prison that has held some of Ecuador's most notorious drug lords in the latest sign of the nation's descent into chaos. Police special forces carried out a controlled explosion of the artifact after it landed on the penitentiary known as La Roca. The blast ripped off much of the building's roof. Ecuador's prison service didn't respond to questions regarding current inmates of La Roca, which is in Guayaquil on the nation's Pacific coast. The institution has helped bring leaders of prison riots that have left more than 430 inmates dead since 2021. After the drone was detected, inmates at risk of injury were transferred elsewhere within the complex. The procedure successfully avoided casualties and structural damage occurred while neutralizing the danger by using a scanner. Security also detected and foiled an attempt to smuggle guns and ammunition hidden in a canister of gas into the prison. Violence between warring groups of cocaine traffickers has engulfed Ecuador in recent years, with the homicide rate surging to 27 people per 100,000 last year, topping Colombia and Mexico. Crime became the main issue in the presidential election, even before candidate Ferdinand Villavicencio was gunned down in August after vowing to fight the drug mafias. The runoff between businessman Danello and socialist candidate Luisa Gonzalez is scheduled for October 15.
Two assassins have gunned down an official from Mexico's Attorney General's office just days after another prosecutor was murdered in the same southern region plagued by drug cartel-related violence. The Attorney General's office in the southern state of Guerrero said it had launched a homicide investigation after Fernando Garcia was shot dead in the state capital, Chilpancingo. Last Saturday, public prosecutor Victor Manuel Salas was killed in another area of Guerrero, located in the Tierra Caliente region, known for being a hotbed of drug-linked activity. Guerrero is one of Mexico's poorest states and has endured years of violence linked to turf wars between drug cartels fighting for control of drug production and trafficking. Last year, multiple armed invaders attacked a town hall and murdered at least 20 people, including a mayor. Since then, the government announced a military operation in the region aimed at protecting civilians from growing violence. More than 420,000 people have been killed across Mexico since the government deployed the army to fight drug cartels in 2006. U.S. Speaker Kevin McCarthy has instructed House Republicans to proceed with an impeachment inquiry into U.S. President Joe Biden. McCarthy has recently asserted that House Republicans have uncovered credible allegations concerning Biden's involvement in a culture of corruption. The impeachment inquiry will be led by the chairpersons of the House Oversight Committee, Judiciary Committee, and Ways and Means Committee. Their primary goal is to obtain records and documents related to President Biden and his son Hunter. McCarthy emphasizes that launching an impeachment inquiry is a means to gather more information regarding these allegations through House committee investigations.
Up next, thousands are feared to be dead as the flood in Libya continues. A stolen Van Gogh painting makes its way back home. And a new diet that can help combat deforestation. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break.
in the mood for food with Ara and Whitney.
Magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw, magandang araw.
Armed groups from northern Mali have claimed the key town of Boram between Gogh and Timbuktu, fueling fears of the collapse of a peace deal between the ex-rebels and government forces. In a statement, the Malian military said it had repelled a complex attack involving car bombs that left 10 soldiers dead and 13 injured, while 46 terrorists were killed. The Permanent Strategic Framework issued a statement saying it launched an operation at Boram, taking control of the camp and various advanced posts from the army and the allied Russian paramilitary group Wagner. An alliance of predominantly Tuareg armed groups launched a revolt in 2012 against the state but signed a peace agreement 3 years later. The fragile deal, known as the Algiers Agreement, came under strain after the civilian government was toppled in 2020 and replaced by a junta. The region has seen a resurgence of tension in recent weeks, triggered in part by the pullout of UN peacekeeping troops from Mali. Boram lies on the road between the ancient city of Timbuktu and Gao, heading towards the Tuareg fiefdom of Kidal further to the north. Rivalries have recently intensified between the multitude of armed actors vying for control of the north.
Meanwhile, Libya's eastern city of Derna was counting its dead, with 2,300 people confirmed killed in devastating flash floods unleashed by Storm Danielle, with the Red Cross and Red Crescent warning that 10,000 are still missing. 2 river dams burst after the storm hit on Sunday afternoon, releasing an enormous surge of water that tore through the Mediterranean coastal city, sweeping away buildings and the people inside them. By late Tuesday, the confirmed death toll from emergency services in the country was at least 2,300, although some officials were quoted as giving figures more than twice as high, as another 10,000 people were still missing. The city of Derna is ringed by hills and bisected by what is normally a dry riverbed in the summer, but which became a raging torrent of mud-brown water that also swept away several major bridges. With global concern about the disaster spreading, several nations offered urgent aid and rescue teams to help the war-scarred country that has been overwhelmed by what the UN official called a calamity of epic proportions. The United Nations and several countries offered to send aid, which among them are Algeria, Egypt, France, Italy, Qatar, and Tunisia.
Morocco's desperate search is still on for survivors 4 days after a powerful earthquake killed more than 2,900 people. Most of them were in remote villages of the high Atlas Mountains. Bernadette Regini reports.
Moroccan search and rescue teams and those from abroad keep digging through the rubble of broken mud brick homes, all hoping for signs of life as they race against time. A 6.8 magnitude quake shocked the country late Friday. The Red Cross is appealing for more than $100 million in aid to meet what it says as the most pressing needs in the North African country. These include water, shelter, health, and sanitation services. The humanitarian organization says there is a need to make sure a second wave of disaster is avoided. In Marrakesh, displaced families still sleep out in the open, huddled in blankets on public squares for fear of aftershocks. The need is most desperate, however, in remote and poor mountain villages. Many of these villages are only reachable via winding dirt roads. Traditional adobe homes have crumbled to rubble and dust. Quake survivors search by hand for missing relatives. Bernadette Regini for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In Vietnam, state media reported a 9-story building fire that killed dozens, including 4 children, injuring 50 others. According to authorities, the fire started around midnight in the parking area of the building with no emergency exit. Rescuers had difficulty reaching the building due to the narrow pathways leading to the entrance. Some residents jumped from the burning building and suffered multiple injuries while others suffocated under the smoke. Rescuers rushed the victims to different hospitals across the city. Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh expressed condolences to the victims' families. He ordered a thorough investigation into the cause of the fire while releasing an executive decree on the regular inspection of fire-prone buildings. Vietnam has witnessed two of the deadliest fires in its history in the past 2 years.
A family in New Mexico that was rushing to try and save their dog's life was stopped and held at gunpoint by the cops. William Albrecht was driving his dog Stella to the vet with his wife and 16-year-old son after their pet was hit by a car. Albrecht drove down 550 through Bernalillo from their Rio Rancho home toward the nearest emergency vet when a police cruiser stopped them for speeding. Police videos from the traffic stop showed Officer Jeremy Nevares ordering a Mr. Albrecht out of the car at gunpoint. The situation escalated when 3 other officers arrived on the scene, who then also pointed their guns at Miss Albrecht and their son Remy. However, another officer who was checking on the family convinced Officer Nevares to let the family go. Unfortunately, the family dog did not make it and died shortly after they arrived at the vet. An ACLU in New Mexico is now representing the Albrecht family and will likely file a lawsuit on their behalf.
A disturbing clip has resurfaced online showing hunters running for their lives as a herd of elephants charged toward them. This was after they had shot and killed a member of the elephants' herd. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Leave him again. Hey! Reload! Hey! You on?
In the video, hunters in the Nakabolelwa Conservancy in Namibia, southern Africa, are seen carrying loaded firearms, with one of the hunters giving the advice to hit between the head. The animal, commonly tagged as gentle giants, fought back after hunters opened fire at point-blank distance and released 3 shots that took down a member of the elephant's herd. Celebrations of their intended victory was cut short after the herd of elephants decided to seek revenge, charging and trumpeting loudly in order to scare the group of hunters. When the video was first released, the safari's owner, Korn Kruger, claimed that hunting provides a financial benefit to the local communities in Namibia, stating that there is a small quota of elephants in the area and that they only hunt 2 elephants a year. The world's biggest conservation organization, World Wildlife Fund, or WWF, considers the African elephant species as critically endangered, with only an estimated population of 415,000 in the world.
A Dutch art detective dubbed as the Indiana Jones of the art world has finally found a lost Van Gogh painting right at his doorstep.
Wat een dag. Gogh Spring Garden, painted in 1884, stolen 3.5 years ago on Van Gogh's birthday.
The long wait is over for the search of Vincent van Gogh's painting Spring Garden, for it has arrived clad in a pillowcase and bubble wrapped inside a shopping bag. The painting has been in the mind of the Dutch art detective Arthur Brand, making it his mission to retrieve the lost painting that is priced between 3 to 6 million euros.
It took 1,300 days, but here it is, and I will hand it over in a few moments to the museum director. And I think you will be happy.
The art piece, which was stolen during the midst of the coronavirus lockdown in 2020, has since been involved in a game of hot potato, with multiple suspects passing it down to one another. The suspects remain to be anonymous as requested by the museum and its officials.
According to a United Nations study, 1/3 of the world's population is still without internet access. This despite the number of people connected being so high at present. Rosel Ferry has more.
latest UN statistics published Tuesday reveals that 67% of the world's population, or 5.4 billion people, are able to access the internet at present. However, the other 2.6 billion people are still without access. The International Telecommunication Union, or ITU, says they will not rest until we live in a world where meaningful connectivity is a lived reality for everyone, everywhere. ITU Chief Doreen Bogdan Martin says sustained efforts are needed to achieve universal and meaningful connectivity by 2030. ITU is the UN Agency for Information and Communication Technologies. The latest global figures confirms that the double-digit growth in connectivity during the 2020 peak of the pandemic did not last long. In Washington, D.C., Rosel Feria for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Geologists in the United States have discovered what they believe as the world's largest lithium deposit in Nevada. The lithium reservoir is said to be inside of an ancient supervolcano known as McDermott Caldera, which has set to clay with up to 40 million metric tons of precious metals. Scientists say the amount of lithium is only based on estimates. Meanwhile, the caldera measures approximately 45 kilometers long and 35 kilometers wide. Data shows that U.S.'s lithium reserves stand at 1 million metric tons.
Little meat, little fish, and a lot of vegetables, otherwise called the Mediterranean diet, might help fight deforestation. This according to a study linking meat consumption and global warming. Kimi Oria has more details.
The World Health Organization says most people eat 20% to 25% too much meat. And this, the health agency says, is not good for the environment. World Wildlife Fund Director of Conservation Program Jan Lawrence explains the two links between meat consumption and global warming. First, to grow food for livestock not raised on grass, you have to take a lot of space from wetlands, meadows, and forests. Second, the need for fertilizers and pesticides. He says all this consumes carbon from the forests and then carbon for the inputs, or what goes into the crops. Lawrence says we can reduce meat consumption without damaging our health. He explains that if the whole planet ate a flexible diet called the Mediterranean diet, there would be almost no need for additional land on the planet to produce food for the Earth's inhabitants in 2050. This diet involves eating a little meat, a little fish, and a lot of vegetables. He says even with a growing population, if everyone were flexible and reduced meat consumption, there would be less need of the space that would otherwise be needed to produce this food, which explains a large part of the deforestation. Deforestation in the world today, he says, is linked to this need for space. Kimi Oria from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, next generation Apple devices can now be powered by USB-C. WWE and UFC announce a big-time merger. And find out who the winners are from MTV's VMAs. Catch more news in business, tech, sports, and entertainment when we return.
Ako si Pat Pidaza, kwinento sa akin ni Alex Santos ng responde, si Lola Inday, na mahilig magluto. At dahil kami ay malaki ang aming puso, bibigyan namin siya ng pangluto.
Responde at Lutong Daza.
Open! Ayan! Wow!
Magkatuwang na rumisponde sa maglola na nangangailangan ng kabuhayan. Ang kanilang natatanging kwento ng katatagan, pagmamalasakit at pag-ibig sa isa't isa, abangan!
Salamat talaga ako. May matutulong sa amin.
O LJ, anong sabihin mo kay lola mo?
Love you.
Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi, ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
More than a dozen of investors have called Nike to pay garment workers in Cambodia and Thailand. Labor rights groups stated that garment workers of Nike from these two supplier countries have lost jobs after the COVID-19 factory shutdowns. The investors have demanded Nike to provide $2.2 million in alleged unpaid wages to more than 4,000 workers. Sportswear giant Nike will face more pressure after the request of investors in the annual shareholder meeting on September 12 and from the ongoing investigation of Canadian and U.S. government agencies. Investors at Dutch Bank Triodos and pension fund PGGM have cited a report from a nonprofit workers' rights consortium for the allegedly dismissal of 1,284 Violet apparel workers in June 2020 without prior notice and paying them their full benefits and back pay. WRC has also added that the Violet apparel made clothing for Nike as subcontractor, adding the testimony from workers and pictures taken inside the factory. Meanwhile, Nike supplier Hong Seng Knitting in Thailand has refused to give $800,000 to pay more than 3,000 Burmese migrant workers. Nike stated that all workers in the Hong Seng Knitting factory were compensated accordingly based on local law and Nike's code of conduct. They also deny the allegations that the company has sourced products from the Cambodian factory and the need to further compensate the workers in Thailand. Canadian businessman Doug Putnam was in talks with administrators of PricewaterhouseCoopers to buy some 200 shops at Wilko, which went bust in August. Wilko, which operated some 400 stores across the UK and online, announced its collapse on August 10, putting 12,500 jobs at risk. From Edinburgh, United Kingdom, Hilary Mendoza reports.
Thousands of job losses are imminent at UK household goods retailer Wilko as talks for a rescue deal with HMV, music store chain's owner, have collapsed. Canadian entrepreneur Doug Putnam has been actively negotiating with PricewaterhouseCoopers administrators to acquire approximately 200 Wilko store locations following the company's financial collapse in August. Wilko, which operated some 400 stores across the UK and online, announced its fall on August 10, putting 12,500 jobs at risk. B&M European Value Retail has agreed to buy 51 Wilko stores for £13 million, but no information was given regarding job security. PricewaterhouseCoopers has announced that 52 Wilko stores will not be included in the rescue package, resulting in the closure of these stores and affecting over 1,300 employees. Approximately 300 jobs will go to 2 distribution centers. The GMB union has announced that all Wilko stores are expected to close by early next month, leading to potential redundancy for all 12,500 workers. Reporting from Edinburgh, United Kingdom, I am Hilary Mendoza from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
SpaceX is set to launch Telesat's broadband satellites into orbit. This is after the two announced a multi-launch agreement to deliver the Telesat Lightspeed constellation to low Earth orbit, or LEO. Telesat has signed for 14 launches on SpaceX Falcon 9, which will carry up to 18 satellites to LEO per launch. The campaign is set to start in 2026, while Telesat plans to offer its global service by 2027. Tuesday's Apple keynote event unveiled the iPhone 15 lineup, and here are the biggest changes. Stephanie Mayo has the data.
Apple unveiled its latest iPhone at the annual keynote event in Cupertino, California. According to Apple CEO Tim Cook at the Tuesday event, the iPhone 15 models are the best and most capable iPhones the company has ever made. This year's launch is especially significant considering the tech giant suffered from a sales drop in 3 consecutive quarters. The phone comes in 2 sizes, either a 6.1-inch base model or 6.7-inch Screen Plus model. The iPhone 15 and 15 Plus will come in 5 colors: pink, yellow, green, blue, and black. Meanwhile, the 15 Pro models will come in titanium casing of black, white, blue, and natural titanium finish. The Pro includes an A17 Bionic chip, which boosts the phone's speed and performance. All iPhone 15 models now feature the dynamic island for app notifications, a detail that was introduced with last year's iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max devices. The iPhone 15 also upgraded its photography capabilities by introducing a 48-megapixel camera. But perhaps the biggest change is the switch to USB-C for charging and data transfer. The Apple iPhone 15 will be available for pre-order on September 15th and will be on sale in stores beginning September 22nd. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
National Football League superstar quarterback Aaron Rodgers has suffered a season-ending torn left Achilles tendon into his New York Jets debut. An MRI exam showed 4-time NFL Most Valuable Player suffered a complete tendon tear when he was sacked by Buffalo's Leonard Floyd, which New York won 22-16 over the visiting Bills in the season opener. With Rodgers turning 40 in December, there was concern that one of the most prolific passers in NFL history might have played his final snap. Rodgers, who spent 18 seasons with the Green Bay Packers before being traded to the Jets in April, went down awkwardly about 4 minutes into the game and was helped off the field. The Jets obtained Rodgers because they saw a top quarterback as the key missing piece to contending for a title. Rodgers' injury was more heartbreak for the long-suffering Jets supporters as statisticians dropped the Jets' chances of winning the Super Bowl from 16-1 to 35-1. The team won its only Super Bowl in 1969 and owns the longest playoff drought in major North American sports history, last making a postseason appearance in 2010. Meanwhile, for wrestling and mixed martial arts fans, the World Wrestling Entertainment and the Ultimate Fighting Championship have completed a £17.3 billion or $21.4 billion merger and launched under a new name, TKO. The newly combined company TKO is led by Endeavor Chief Executive Ariel Emanuel. Pro wrestling mogul Vince McMahon will serve the new company as executive chairman, while UFC's president Dana White is now its chief executive. UFC owners Endeavor Group Holdings will own 51% controlling interests in the new company, while WWE shareholders will own the remaining 49%. In a statement, meanwhile, by Endeavor CEO Ariel Emanuel, the creation of TKO marks an exciting new chapter for UFC and WWE as leaders in global sports and entertainment. And now being under one roof, UFC and WWE will provide unrivaled experiences for more than 1 billion passionate fans worldwide. The 2023 MTV Video Music Awards concluded on Tuesday with Taylor Swift emerging the biggest winner of the night. Bernadette Manuel has the scoop.
Taylor Swift swept the VMAs at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, Tuesday night, winning in 9 categories, including Video of the Year, Song of the Year, Album of the Year for Midnights, and Artist of the Year. She now has the second most overall wins in the history of VMAs. Swift led the nominations pool with 11, while SZA had 8. 6 nominations went to Blackpink, Doja Cat, Miley Cyrus, Nicki Minaj, and Olivia Rodrigo. For a quick recap, here are some of the VMAs highlights. Lil Wayne opened the award ceremony, which lasted for almost 4 hours with well over a dozen sets. The crowd went wild with a surprise appearance by NSYNC, who last performed at the VMAs in 2013. Sean Diddy Combs took home the Global Icon Award after he performed some of his biggest hits. Meanwhile, Shakira became the first South American artist to win the Video Vanguard Award and received a standing ovation after a stunning 10-minute performance of her iconic songs. Host Nicki Minaj belted out Last Time I Saw You and debuted new material from her upcoming album Pink Friday 2. For the show's finale, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, Nicki Minaj, Lil Wayne, LL Cool J, and Run DMC entertained the crowd with a medley to celebrate 50 years of hip-hop. Bernadette Manuel for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
This news may break a few hearts. Captain America star Chris Evans is officially off the market. The actor married Alba Baptista over the weekend. Catherine Ortula has the scoop.
Chris Evans is no longer single. The Captain America star married his girlfriend Alba Baptista at their Boston area home in Cape Cod, Massachusetts on Saturday. The intimate ceremony was attended by the couple's family and some of Evans' Avengers co-stars, including Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, and Jeremy Renner. According to media reports, the wedding was locked down tight, guests signed NDAs, and phones were forfeited. The relationship of Evans, 42, and Baptista, 26, first came to public attention in November 2022, when People magazine reported that Evans and the Portuguese actress had been dating for over a year. Baptista gained fame in the Netflix series Warrior Nun before appearing in 2022's Oscar-nominated film Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. She speaks 5 languages: Portuguese, English, German, French, and Spanish. She has also won awards for her work, including the European Shooting Star Award at the Berlin Film Festival and an award for Best Actress at the Festival Ibérico de Cine for her role in the short film Miami. Evans, now wife, was also named IMDb's Top 10 Breakout Stars of 2020. Catherine Ortula for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Well, what can we say but congratulations and best wishes to the newlyweds. And to help you get through this week, here's a quote from American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment.
You know, when people tell us to be ourselves, it seems repetitive, it seems cliche, but sometimes it is very difficult with everything going on around us. So easy to give into the pressure. So it's a good reminder.
I get what you're saying, and every single day is a struggle for most. And I'm not saying many, I say most, because of social media and such.
So be yourself and embrace that. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richiela Go Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.